we look at our earth, we look at the sun and the moon and the stars and the sky, and we feel that's our world. And then as we dig into science, we realize that maybe there are other universes, there are other galaxies, which scientists have been able to decipher. And then start to realize that when we look at things in this world, we find there are about 6 billion human beings, there are all kinds of animals and birds and fish and insects, all kinds of living forms. And then we feel like in this universe we feel very insignificant, because we find ourselves 1 in 6 billion, maybe 1 in billions and trillions of other living beings. And how do we relate to God? And where do we find God? And how do we meet the Creator who created all of this? And when that happens to us, many times we get despondent and say, oh, we're so small, how are we going to find God? But what is very interesting is that when we look at the scriptures, when we look at the writings of the great saints and mystics, when we look at what has happened with them, their teachings, time and time again, they tell us God is with you. God is inside of you. And one starts to wonder, how can God, who is so magnanimous, be in such an insignificant being? And I think that's where the dilemma comes in. There's when we start to think, is it really true? Are the words correct? Can we experience that? How can it be that you can take a big thing, put in a small thing? We in this world see that, many of you as you grow up saw those Russian dolls. You have one big doll and then you open it up and a smaller doll comes out. Open up, another doll comes out. So small things go into big things. That's what we have seen in life. We've seen many other ways where a big container will have other containers in it. But how does a big thing go into a small thing? That's very difficult for our mind to comprehend. We all are always searching on the outside. We don't focus within ourselves because we feel we're so insignificant. We feel, we're so impure. We feel we have so many shortcomings. We feel, we're nothing. And we think of God being so far away and, so magnanimous and so busy and doing all kinds of things. We wonder if there's any way we can get to Him. And him or her, whatever these days, God could be any gender. We always are feeling that, God has to be someplace else. Because we look at our lives and we all go through ups and downs of life. And as we go through the ups and downs of life, we always are feeling as if some shortcomings in our being because of either our difficulties or difficulties of someone else are just bringing our life to a point where, maybe God is not aware of what is happening with us, and this is why we don't get the help. And little do we realize that the hand of the Lord is always there. We all have an inner eye. All human beings have been given that privilege. This is why the human body is called the roof and crown of all creation. Because in each and every one of us, God has provided us with an inner eye. What they call it, the Shiv Netra, the Dasmadar, the Divya Chakshu, the seat of the soul. Now for most of us it's closed, because this gateway opens into the regions beyond. And so a glance of love is what opens this door up, so that we can soar into the inner spiritual regions. And this is why Kabir Sahib has said, he said, don't get the darshan of the Master once a day, get it 1,000 times a day. Why? Because we don't know when we are going to receive that glance of love. Because we don't know how receptive we are. the people who are receptive are the ones who really benefit. And many people go to saints and mystics, and many people go for many reasons. Some might go there because it's a social gathering. You meet other people. Other people go there, it's something nice to hear, so it's good for the time we hear it. It makes us calm, it makes us peaceful. Other people come because they feel, our parents go, we have to go. So there are many reasons why we go to a satsang or why we go. But who are the ones who benefit? Those who are receptive. So how does one get receptive? Those in whom the love of the Lord can be experienced. And so when does that happen? When we have a passion to know God. When we have a desire to know God. When we have a passion to know the truth. When we have a zeal in ourselves to find out what are we supposed to do here. We pass through life and we all have our own responsibilities. As children we grow and we study because that's the norm which is set in all societies. We get into a profession and find some work. And as we find work, then we get settled down, we get married. And as our societies are set up, then we have children. And then we bring them up. And in that process, the time which has been given to us to know ourselves is all being spent in taking care of what we think are our responsibilities. Because no one tells us as we are born that our responsibility is to know God. Everyone tells us as a child our responsibility is to study. As we have done with our education, everyone says you have to get a job. As you're done with a job in a few years, there's pressure, get married. As you get married, there's pressure, have kids. So this is the cycle that we're in, one after another. We all are in all cultures. There's not too much difference. And so we pass through life just feeling that we have these obligations to take care of, and in the process we forget what is truly important. And so when these questions crop up in us as to why are we here, where are we going to go at the time of death? And sometimes these happen when someone close to us passes away. At other times it might happen, we're going through a very difficult period in life and we start to think, what is life all about? Sometimes the pull of the Lord just comes in and in our heart there's a rankling. And all of a sudden we feel, hey, we need to do something better than what we're doing. We need to be happier, we need to be calm. Start to search for something. And so when we have a zeal and a passion, then we are receptive to be receiving something. And so the realization that the Lord is to be found within ourselves is set in the writings and teachings of practically all the saints. When you look at their own lives, you find that they sat in silence. You can call it meditation, you can call it inversion, you can call it going within, concentration. Different names are similar to sitting in silence so that the will of the Lord could unfold. Experience of the divine that they had, and then they start to disseminate whatever they got inside to their disciples. And what is very interesting is that these great saints and mystics didn't come to build buildings of stone and mortar. There were no churches before Lord Jesus Christ. There were no Buddhist temple before Lord Buddha. There were no mosque before Prophet Muhammad. There were no other places of worship before these great saints and mystics. And they didn't make it themselves. It's their followers who, after they had gone, said that this is my domain. Because when you look at the lives of those saints and mystics, whenever they came, whatever times they came, whatever country they came for everyone. They came because they felt there was a need for the people of the time to know about God. And that's what they talked about. So they didn't come to create a new race or a new religion, but their disciples took the teaching and said, hey, this is mine. You need to disseminate these teachings in the following manner. And so to do that, rites and rituals started to be set in. Because in the lives of the great saints and mystics, when you look at their lives, when you look at their teachings, they all talked about what we call brotherhood of man and fatherhood of God. There's one God, one Creator. Let's focus on the Lord. And most of the teachings talk about silence and experiencing God. The techniques might be slightly different, but they're very, very similar. But it's later on that all kinds of rites and rituals happen. And so, what do we do when we go to a place of worship these days? We have missed out on what is the esoteric side, the inner side of our faiths, and we're all involved in the outer side of our faiths. We feel like go to my place of worship once a week, I'm done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. That chore in my life is taken care of. Spirituality is not like once a week. Spirituality is how we live our life every moment of the day. Spirituality is to be imbibe in us the virtues which are godly. Are we leading our lives in a manner in which the love and joy and peace that we bring about? And how will that happen? If we are in a state of peace and calm and joy ourselves. So how do we find that peace and joy? Because in the world outside, we're not going to find it. How do, when we look back at history, and we look at the lives of the great saints, we look at, talks about the great loves of this world, because they become like an analogy for us to experience the love of the Lord. We find incidents after incidents which show the love that we might find for ourselves in this world, and how godly love would be so much far more greater. There are many incidents out of the life of Lala and Majnu. Lala was a princess and Majnu was a commoner. So Majnu fell in love with Lala, Lala fell in love with Majnu. And their love was so great that Majnu would many times think he's Lala and Lala thinks she's Majnu. And there are many interesting stories about their life which show to what lengths one would go when you are in love. In this one incident, they say that Majnu, being a commoner, was having a very difficult time to see Lala. Because she was a princess, she was guarded all the time. And, he was a commoner, not allowed to be in their presence. So he found out that she was going to be in an area where there were a lot of sheep. So he dressed as a sheep. He dressed as a sheep to go get the glimpse of his beloved. And he's waiting. And Lala doesn't know that he's there, and he gets a glimpse of Lala, and gets a glimpse of Lala. He's transported to another heaven. And he feels unconscious. All the sheep are gone, he's lying there. And as the story told, a friend of his who was passing by saw him. He said, Majnu, what are you doing here? Because Lala had gone, he was just lying by himself. In the sheep clothes, if you don't have money, you don't have clothes, come home, I'll give you some nice clothes to wear. And Majnu said, no, I don't want your clothes. These are the best clothes I can have. So his friend said, what do you mean these are the best clothes you can have? And Majnu said, because in these clothes I could get a glimpse of my Lala. And so, it's this kind of love that the saints talk about. A love which is so great that it pulls us. And that is the kind of love that we experience as we go within ourselves. The love of the Lord which unfolds to us as we sit in silence. And Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj has talked about, and what that love does is, it opens up our horizon, it puts our attention away from the dark night that we're going in, through our difficulties or problems, and transports us into a new heaven. And in one of these other verses it says, in the assembly, I'm seeking a glance of love. I'm searching for the dawn of the evening of my desire. So when we try to understand this verse, it's talking about our life. We're living in this world, this is the assembly in which we live. So what are we really seeking? A glance of love. Why are we seeking that? He says, I'm searching for a dawn of the evening of my desire. When most people go out for a vacation, I go to the beach, what is you want to see the sunrise and the sunset. Because those are the two times which are very, very beautiful. And what is very interesting is, in spirituality, the saints are always talking about the dawn, they don't talk about the sunset. That's very interesting. We all think the sunset is very beautiful, the color is very good. But so why are they talking about the dawn here? Because it's the end of the night. It's the end of our misery, it's the end of our difficulty, it's the end of the pain. And what does dawn do? When you see the sunrise, you see the beautiful hues come out. And what after that, you're awakened. The light is there, the darkness is gone. So when you read spiritual poetry, you'll find always talking about the dawns, because it's the spiritual awakening that needs to happen in us. And that's what the glance of love does. And so Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying, I'm searching for the dawn of the evening of my desire. The words are very, I think they're chosen very appropriately here. What is happening to us? Our life is going by our desires. We desire this thing, so we go in this direction. We desire that thing, we go in that direction. One desire is fulfilled, it doesn't mean we are going to be happy. Another one crops up right away. And then we are running after that one. And what are these desires? These are desires of the objects of this world. We need to get this, we need to be here, we need to make friends with these people, we need to do this. This will be good for our business, that will be good for this. And so one after another, we're going to one thing after another, after another, after another. And so Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying, I'm searching for the dawn of the evening of my desire. He's saying that the desires are putting me in the evening into the night. And I'm searching for that to end, for my desires to end. Because as long as we have any one desire of this world, we'll be focused into the world. So we need to get to a state where there's a passion to be with God. There's a very interesting story from the East about a king. This king was very nice to the people. He was a very nice king, and it said as he was getting older and older, his attention going to God more and more. So he left his kingdom and he went into the jungles and he's praying to God. And this story is told because the law of karma applies to everyone. And so he's praying to God and all. And towards the end of his life, where he's living, there's a deer. And he falls in love with the deer. He likes the deer very much. And it is said that his attention in the deer became so much that at the time of death he's thinking of the deer. And they say he came back in the form of a deer. It's very interesting that even one thought of something can bring you back. That's whether you think these are stories, whether you think these are realities or points that are being made. For us to have desires of this world, our attention will remain here. And karma says for every thought, word and deed we are held accountable. And for us to get off the wheel of transmigration, we have to have all this karma be burned out. And this is where meditation comes into play, because as we meditate regularly, all the daily karma, which is called the kriyaman karma that we create, is burned out daily. Connection with the light and sound of God, which we have as we meditate, helps us unwind our pralabh karma, which we pass in the light, which is the fate karma. And the sanchit karma, which is the greatest Lord, which is the collection of karma which has been with every lifetime that we've had. Our soul is separated from the Lord. As we get initiated by perfect master, then that load is taken out. So this is the theory behind the Santman tradition of why we get initiated and how the karma is wound up. So that when we get to the end of our life, we're asked to do Simran. Simran is repeating God's name. So that our attention is on God and no more karma is built, and we're off the wheel of transmigration. So here Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying, let me have no desire, let my desires have an end. Then I'm looking for a dawn. Because the dawn is realizing that the beautiful sunlight is coming out. The approach to spirituality in the Sanmat tradition is very positive. That's why this is called like positive mysticism. This doesn't negate life. It's not saying you leave your society, you leave the home and go out and just sit in an ashram and just leave all response. They're saying, well, being in the world we can know God, but we need to give attention to this. It's important that we give attention to our spiritual practices and realize that that is a very important aspect of life. That's not to be neglected. That's not to be left when we think that we'll retire or we'll do this, because by that time, we might have run into other difficulties. The right time to know God is now, for each and every one of us. We always say, we'll do this tomorrow, we'll do this tomorrow, we'll do this tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. That's why it's called a present moment. It's a gift. The time is a gift. It's called the present. It's a gift to us of the Lord. So let this present moment not fade away, and let us focus it on God. And this is why, rather than be in a state where we think of the past and think of the future, we're better off when we try to make best use of this time. And so Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj here, through his verses, is telling us the kind of life we should lead. Now, in this other verse, he's talking about what we call a true disciple. What's very interesting, many people, when we start to think about the relationship between a disciple and a master, when we think about divine love, I might think that you're mad or crazy. But what is very interesting is, this verse is very interesting. He's saying, we mad lovers are seeking everlasting love. So he's calling like a true disciple as a mad lover of God. He said, we are madly in love. He's saying, we mad lovers are seeking everlasting love. We search for a dawn that will never end. Like, we're always searching for that time which will bring spiritual awareness, spiritual life, spiritual awakening, which will never end in our lives. Why? Because we are mad lovers in love of God. And so what is very interesting is, people of the world might think that's crazy. But when you look at the writer who wrote this, Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj was maybe one of the brilliant people in the world that he would have met. He's saying, we mad lovers are seeking everlasting love. That's the life of a true disciple. So why would he write that? Because he experienced that through his masters, through the grace of Azur Baba Savan Singh Ji Maharaj, through the grace of Sant Kripal Singh Ji Maharaj. He experienced the love of the Lord. And as soon as he experienced that, the love in our heart is ignited. And then there's no stopping. And this is why all the scriptures of the world say, those who love will find God. Spirituality is nothing different than love. It's another name for love. Love of the Lord, love for other human beings. And in one of the verses, Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj says, Gale laga lo, har insaan ko ke apna hai. Chalo, to raah guzaron mein baante hue pyar. He's saying, embrace everyone as your own and pass through life distributing the love of God. And that realization only comes in if you experience the love yourself. No readings will make us be in that state. No listening to anything will make us be in that state. It's only when we experience the spark of love within ourselves that we truly will experience God. And God is within each and every one of us. This is what the saints are saying at all times. And in this last verse, Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is talking about the kind of society that he's looking for. The kind of society that a true lover of God looks for. He says that, we're seeking for that kind of a town where there's always talk about peace and there's talk about love. I'm searching for a town of love. I'm searching for an environment, for an assembly, for an association where there's the love of God. And Because it is that state which will help me focus my attention on God also. Whatever the environment we are in, it has an effect on us. And so, how do we find a town of love? We need to go within. On the world outside, we find everyone's living for themselves. This ego is so big, everyone's hoping for gains for themselves. As we pass through life, we find, friends, relations. After a while, it looks like everyone's just living for themselves. And so, why? Because they try to gain from us. So who's there who doesn't have to gain anything from us? That's God. God is the giver. God doesn't need anything from us. So when we put our attention on God, then we can find unconditional love. All other loves of this world are conditional. Even the love of a mother for a child, which is the greatest love in this world, or considered to be the greatest love in this world. The mother might think that as she grows old, that the child's help might be needed. But God's love is unconditional, because God has nothing to gain from any one of us. And this is why, as we experience that love, irrespective of who we are, irrespective of what we do, irrespective of what we've done, it doesn't matter. Because God is looking at our soul, not at the human body. And it's that divine love, that spiritual love, which is unending. And that's the kind of existence that we all need to have.